Are you the family CFO, sometimes wishing that your spouse would help with some of the household financial responsibilities? Do you and your spouse often have arguments about money? Do you have arguments with yourself about how to use your money? Unfortunately, financial problems contribute to 20 to 40% of all divorces in the United States. That means for every 10 marriages that end in divorce, 4 of them are due to money. That is shocking. In fact, 41% of divorced Gen Xers and 29% of divorced boomers cite financial disagreements as the reason for their marriages ending. It's clear that money can create major problems in a relationship if both spouses aren't on the same page. Whether it is overspending, living beyond their means, or lack of income to cover necessities, money issues can strain a marriage. And let's not forget the hidden financial problems like secret credit debts and/or hidden bank accounts that spouses end up keeping from each other. That's why I'm excited to share with you today on the latest episode of The Witty Wallet, my conversation with Ashley Kwame, the founder of The Wealthy Marriage. Ashley is a licensed marriage and financial therapist and shares some of her insights on the key money issues couples face today. In the episode, we dive deep into the topic and discuss ways to improve your financial situation. Don't miss this empowering opportunity to take control of your financial freedom and join me as I chat with Ashley to discover the necessary steps towards a healthier financial future.
If finances aren't on the top of your priority list, or maybe you have more of an avoidant relationship with finances, likely you're not going to be the one to initiate.
Hello, Witty Wallet community. Welcome to today's show. I have a very special guest with me today. She's a licensed marriage and financial therapist and a certified financial therapist and the founder of The Wealthy Marriage, which is focused on serving couples who struggle with relational and financial issues. She's based in Georgia, but she serves families globally. She is Ashley Kwame. Ashley, thank you so much for joining me on The Witty Wallet today.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
No, I appreciate it. I knew that, as I was starting to reach out, and we met actually from Shift earlier this
Yeah, I
year, and
did.
I think we can agree. I think most advisors that attended is probably one of the most, like my most favorite conference that I attended this year, and I think it's just the message uh, that Shift is about, and so that's why I'm excited to have you know folks like you who can share your insight, because as a financial advisor, most financial advisors, we oftentimes think we're financial therapists, right? We listen to our clients and try to, walk them through what as best as we can, but we're not licensed clinicians like yourself. There's only so much that we can speak about from our own personal experience. So it's important for me to have folks like you in your profession in dealing with couples and people when it comes to financial therapy, because obviously for one, you're licensed in that space. But I also feel that what I do and what you do is very collaborative in how we can help a much bigger realm of people. So I would love to definitely dive into that, but really before we get into it, I always like to start the podcast here with a little icebreaker, just to kind of get to know you and how you think. So I'm curious, Ashley, if you had the choice to dine with 3 women from history, from present, who would they be and why?
That's a great question. They can be alive currently, correct?
Yep, yep.
Okay, great. Just want to make sure. Um, for first and foremost would be Brene Brown.
Yeah.
Um, for anyone who maybe is connected or familiar with my work or her work, there's a lot of just overlap there. So first would be her. I love everything that she does. The second would be Dr. Julie Gottman.
Okay.
So she is part of the Gottman Institute, and her husband, John Gottman, together collaboratively, they have done tremendous research in the couples and family field that has
Mm,
really shaped and transformed it for clinicians such as myself, but also for providing couples with fantastic just resources. So Julie Gottman, Brene Brown, and then probably the last one would be Dr. Sue Johnson. And
okay.
so she's another just practitioner in the field. She developed emotionally focused therapy. And so that is just, brilliant, fantastic work that I've come to love and practice. So probably unlikely that listeners have maybe heard of those last two. However, I hope maybe after this they go and do some maybe quick research because there's a lot of valuable insight there for just transforming your relationship, as a couple.
Oh, for sure. I think that's very powerful. And I feel lucky, I think, to be living in the time that we are today because I feel like when it comes to just therapy, right? It used to be this stigma, like, oh, or at least in how I grew up, going to therapy is like, oh, you're not strong. Yeah,
Yeah,
for going to therapy. But I feel it's something that is, I feel it's a great way to figure out who you are, and I think a lot of people struggle with that. So I'm glad, like I said,
yeah,
I'm glad to be in this world today to be able to, again, talk with people like you and the brilliant work that you guys do. So,
likewise, yeah.
so I was curious, I always like to figure out and find out about people's journey. So your particular, journey, what inspired you to become, a marriage and couples therapist in going deeper in the financial world?
So in high school, I took an AP psychology class, and that keyed me in on just psychology in general. And I became really fascinated with just how people work, why they think and do things the way that they do. Fast forward through college, I took a course on couples and family and kind of had one of those aha moments. I don't know if you've had that or if others have, but it's just one of those like, yes, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
I wanna work with relationships, I wanna work with couples, I want to understand why some work and why others don't. Beyond that, I've been practicing for close to 15 years now and, seeing couples for pretty much all of that time.
Wow.
And so the last several years, probably 5 to 6, noticing, financial issues coming up a lot within my couples and really
Mm,
feeling ill-equipped for how to help them. I know how to help them communicate better, but not I didn't know how to help them communicate better specifically to finances.
okay.
So I don't like not being able to do things well. That's not
Oh, I'm the same way.
right. So, I looked into just how I can help them do that. A bit of context, my husband is a financial planner. So I had a little bit of help there with
The gr
him,
Yeah.
but given and knowing the work that he does, landed and found financial therapy, thankfully, and really have just focused on that and working specifically with couples who struggle with their relationships with money, whether it be communicating, whether it be what we call financial infidelity, so betrayals that involve
Mm,
finances, etc.
wow. I'm curious because you mentioned, you've been doing this for quite a while, and then you mentioned, I guess maybe over the last several years, I don't know exactly, but you started to notice more couples, I guess, having money issues. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
exactly.
I'm
Yeah.
curious what to think, what you think might be maybe the catalyst for you to see that increase in couples having those issues.
Well, I think some of that could have been just my own listening ear,
Mm, mm,
being more attuned to that. So I think that that could be part of it.
okay.
Um, the couples that I was seeing kind of and what I was attracting were younger couples, so 45 and under who were married with children. That wasn't all the couples but that was a pretty large bulk of it. And
I see.
so, you know, being in that bracket myself, I know how complicated life can get. And then you add into the mix maybe difficulties around finances, and it can really complicate things. So, couples were coming in and presenting problems were centered around like, we fight a lot. We don't go on vacations. All he wants to do is, just save, save, save. There were things kind of
Mm,
like that were cropping up. But then there were also really subtle, I guess, presenting problems such as working too much. So,
mm,
where one partner was quote unquote working all the time and not spending time with the family. And while that might not sound like an overt financial issue, it actually is. And it does tie directly back to our relationship with earning and our relationship with money. So, a lot of these issues just coming and landing on my couch, or couches, I should say, uh, and just wanting to be able to serve those couples better was kind of, I guess, that desire and trying to seek out further education and resources.
Yeah, well, I mean, thank you for sharing that. I'm sure for your particular household, your husband's a financial advisor, you're a financial therapist. It's a very unique situation that is not normal, right?
Correct.
For most couples. So I'm sure, obviously, you guys are learning, how to deal with that dynamic as well. And I think I'd asked you this kind of in our prep call, but I'm curious if you can share, the people that the couples that come to see you, is it normally the say the male that wants to go see the female? Is there anything such like that when it comes to gender? What has been your kind of observation with the people that have come to you? I'm curious.
Typically, it's not so much gender specific when it's related to finances. Typically, it is more what we would may refer to as the financially dominant partner, or the CFO in the
Mm,
house, the chief financial officer, right?
mm-hmm,
And so that may not be gender specific. It's usually who is the one in the household that cares the most about finances.
mm,
And so that is typically who I see reaching out for help or assistance the most. And I can make sense of that because, if finances aren't on the top of your priority list, or maybe you have more of an avoidant relationship with finances, likely you're not going to be the one to initiate
right.
support for
Yeah.
dealing with that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, as you're talking about that, I can certainly kind of see where that thinking and where that comes from. Between me and my wife, I'm the financial advisor, so I take on the role of the family CFO, and I do try to make a conscious effort of getting her involved in our finances, because with my clientele, I work with a lot of widowed women,
Mm,
and in my experience and the type of clients that I work with, what I've come across is, it's a lot of financial stress because most of them, their husbands were the one that took care of the finances. So coming into that type of situation where all of a sudden you become a widow, now having to deal with money, for me personally, that experience and trying to walk them through that ingrained in me to say, okay, I want to make sure my wife, God forbid something happens to me, at least knows a bit about what we're doing as opposed to just kind of not knowing anything. And she's actually excited to listen into this episode because I said, yeah, this is,
uh-oh.
I'm going to be interviewing this financial therapist. She's like, oh, I want to definitely tune in. So,
No
and
pressure
and
then, yeah.
and for me, that makes me excited because now, again, it's getting her interested into a bit of my world and just to kind of see, like you said, the things that you deal with your couples and how you help them kind of navigate that situation. And so you mentioned something, and I'd love to have you talk about that more. Is our relationship with money? Can you
Mm.
ex- can you expand about upon that? I love behavioral finance, and I think just having that awareness of what that really means, I would love to have you share that.
Yeah, most of us don't really think of ourselves as having a relationship with money.
Hmm.
We tend to think that our relationships are more with people. But at least from the background that I come from educationally, as a systems thinker, like we have relationships with and to everything. And so money is no different. It's the one resource that touches literally every single part of our life. And
Mm,
so, we have a relationship with that resource, whether we want to or not. Oftentimes, where that relationship develops, or I shouldn't say oftentimes, but it develops
yeah.
early on in our childhood. Whether we realize it or not, it's unconscious. What we see our parents doing professionally, how we hear certain money messages within our household or between caregivers, earning, our first paycheck, selling
Mm,
lemonade at the lemonade stand.
mm.
um, I share that one of my first money memories that I have was actually I was probably 6 and I stole chapstick from the grocery store.
Oh
I
boy.
know, right? I hope that the North Carolina police don't come after me now for it. But I took it without asking.
Yeah.
Um, my parents made me return that, and so the message that I learned, from that experience was that you have to work, for money,
Mm,
and money is what purchases things. So those are very unconscious, like, money messages, and meanings that we learn and develop in childhood, and depending upon what those messages are, it goes on to shape how we come to interact and relate to money, whether that be
mm,
using it as a coping strategy for when we're stressed out or perhaps grieving the loss of a loved one,
mhm.
whether that is saving relentlessly because we're so scared that something terrible is going to happen to us
Yeah.
and we don't want to be caught off guard. So all of the ways in which we presently are relating or behaviorally engaging with money really stem back from our childhood, adolescence upbringings.
I love that. I feel that is so powerful once you notice that and you become aware of that. Just looking at my own childhood too and how I was either taught or not taught, and most people think we're taught what finances in school, but we're not for the most part, unfortunately. And I hope that does change. So we learn a lot from like your experience with your parents, just that simple, subtle message kind of shaped how you view money and kind of now you're taking on that role to help other people. So is that something that you kind of go through with like a lot of your couples and going through that work and uncovering kind of what their relationship with money was like growing up?
I will, yeah. And I use a few assessment tools that will help facilitate that. But yes, like we will talk about earliest money memories, some of the messages or beliefs that they have about money.
Mhm.
So, like, money is to be saved, not spent.
Mm, mhm,
Money is the root of all evil. Rich people are greedy. Like,
mhm.
there's some pretty deep ones there that we probably don't even, realize that we have until we start to actively take an approach, whether it be through therapy or just our own work and uncovering those. So that is a part of the work that I do is trying to uncover what those messages or meanings are. What was the narrative that was previously written
Mm,
um,
yeah.
about money? Do we like that narrative? Is that something that we like? Is that something that we agree with? And then what are the steps towards changing or rewriting that narrative to fit how we want to be and interact with our money?
Interesting. So when you take people on this journey, right, and they start to uncover these things about them, what have you seen as far as once that maybe realization happens and the things maybe that they do differently, do you see it obviously improving their relationship with money and being maybe if they weren't confident before, a lot more confident because it's all internal internal awareness? Curious.
Yeah, I the confidence certainly. What I see the most is more intentional choices.
Mm,
You and I both know that, from we kind of run on autopilot, let's be
Right.
honest,
Yeah.
myself included. And while I consider myself a decently aware individual who has done some good work, like for the most part, I'm running on autopilot. I've got 2 kids, I've got 2 businesses, like I trying to take care of myself, everything. I
Yeah.
run on autopilot, and I know that I'm no different. Many listeners who are listening in are probably nodding going, "Yeah, I'm on autopilot too, trying to
Yeah.
get through the day." What I find when working with couples or even individuals, and we start to uncover some of these money messages, meanings, and making connections to behaviors, is that they start to find moments where they come off of autopilot and they make intentional, conscious choices as to what or how they want to spend their money, save their money, how they relate or feel about their money.
Mm,
And to me, that is a pretty cool experience as a therapist, is when they
yeah.
come in and share something and they're like, "Hey, I went into Target and I actually bought just the things on my list, not all everything
Not
else,
everything.
not everything else," right? And as
Yeah.
someone who also struggles with that, particular issue, I'm like
Uh-huh.
high-fiving, like, "At a girl," right?
Yeah.
It's awesome. So, I find that what that work starts to look like is really just clients starting to make more conscious choices. And when they start to make more conscious choices, that is when the confidence then develops for being able to manage and or relate to their money in a better way.
I see. Okay. So, what would you say then would be like someone wanting to go see you? Obviously, maybe with couples, right? They're having issues with talking about money. Do you think there's certain, I don't know if I'm phrasing this right, certain factors that maybe people who are listening that they should notice or start to be aware of to say, okay, maybe I think it's time to go see a financial therapist? Um, yeah, I'm curious if you have any insight on that.
I think there's some obvious ones out there. Like if you are living above your financial means, meaning like if you are spending more than what you are bringing in,
Hmm.
that's a great sign that, hey, you're not as conscious or making conscious choices. And so it could be beneficial to work with a financial therapist,
Yeah.
or an accredited financial counselor. So that can be, definitely a sign. And that might be hard for some people to hear,
Yeah.
but that is definitely a financial sign, that working with somebody, even a financial advisor, too, that could be helpful in at least pointing some things out. Other signs might be if you have any guilt purchases. So, or if you're returning things
Yeah.
often, right?
Yeah.
Take Target, for example, right? You go to Target.
You're well known at the target return line.
I
Not you,
not
not you.
anymore.
I'm
No,
saying no, no. I'm just saying in
not
general.
anymore. I'm not.
Okay.
Not anymore. Uh, but let's just say, like, you are purchasing things and then you get home and you're like, "Oh, like, I don't really need that. Gosh, I feel
Mm,
so bad." Like, and you're returning things a lot. That could be a sign too that maybe, you're purchasing things out of impulse. You're not making conscious choices, or intentional choices. And then that guilt catches up with you. And that's a
right.
pretty, just really hard dynamic to bounce back and forth.
Yeah.
If you and your partner are arguing a lot about money, spending, saving, or if your partner works too much, I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I work with couples who typically are, 45 to 50 and under. They're in kind of the throes of raising children. So I hear that a lot when partner's working too much. Working with a financial therapist to uncover what's going on there, particularly one that maybe specializes in couples, could be helpful, from that lens as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I feel it's important to spread that message because I feel like I don't know if you come across this, but a lot of people feel what was the term? I was talking about it with a friend the other day. Financial, they're embarrassed about their situations,
Yeah.
and so sometimes I feel like being embarrassed about the situation and can cause avoidance and just keep spiraling, down.
Yeah, that shame can really grab hold of you. And I think for a lot of people, maybe from the outside looking in, would say, well, that quote unquote should motivate you. But in
Right.
fact, it really, for most people, it doesn't. Shame has a way of causing us to retreat and pull back and into ourself. And
Hmm.
so you're exactly right. Like it can create or exacerbate just any kind of avoidance that may or may not always be there. If you're willing, if you're experiencing that kind of shame or just icky kind of feeling. I know that's not a super professional word, icky, but forgive me, I've got young kids, so that's our other language that we're using. But if you've just kind of got an icky feeling like about how you relate to money, that's also a great reason to go and work with a financial therapist as well.
Yeah, yeah. No, I feel the same way. I do come across some people who want to work with a financial advisor, for example, and they'll come in and say, it's not a lot of money. Will you be able to help me? And just tuning in and listening and learning more about, again, how people think, that's kind of where I got that question from, because I can feel that they're like, oh, it's small potatoes. But to me, it's like, no, you're taking the right steps in order to, move into a place that you want to be able to move in. And that's the most important thing um, to do. Whereas others just kind of keep ignoring it until later on, until there's a trauma event or something traumatic where they go and seek help, which
Yeah,
obviously is what I guess a lot of your clients come to you after that trauma. But I think it'd also be important to see, what can we be aware of so we can go be more prepared for that trauma whenever it does happen, because we can't control that part.
correct. I do see more younger couples reaching out proactively.
That's great.
Yeah, and I hope that that trend continues is couples or just individual clients reaching out proactively. I think that speaks in some part maybe due to destigmatizing mental health therapy or just help,
Hmm.
like in general, not even therapy, but just getting help from someone who is trained. So, I am a firm believer in being proactive when it comes to whether it's financial issues, mental health, relational, what have you. And the reason that is exactly what you're saying, Chris. So that then maybe through being
Hmm.
proactive, we can reduce the risk or reduce maybe the intensity of something negative happening in the future.
Yeah, I feel just, I love hearing that more and more young people are, seeking help, uh, because I feel also living in the financial world, for example, that we do today. Personal opinion, I think we're going to have to be more reliant on ourselves to be more financially secure. So I feel with the younger people, to be able to be aware of that and maybe their own money issues will hopefully set them up for big success in the future and more self-reliant on themselves as opposed to outside forces, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, hopefully.
Yeah. So I'm curious, as far as, in terms of, financial therapy, and I love empowerment. Um, what do you think is crucial for, say, couples and women and entrepreneurs like yourself in order to be able to just grasp obviously a secure future, but also one with purpose?
Well, I think it takes a willingness to want to better themselves,
Mhm.
that comes with humility and curiosity,
Yeah.
um, and that's not easy,
Yeah.
to humbly sit back and go, "Ooh, I got some things that I could do differently or be better or want to be better at." It takes a tremendous amount of courage, but it also takes one becoming curious about oneself. So
Mm.
I do believe that external factors or situations can certainly greatly like impact, us and our and influence us, excuse me. But I also think that taking the time to really examine ourselves and how we're contributing to that in an honest way is really one, it's something that we have control over,
Yeah.
but two, it can really perpetuate any type of external growth, whether it be in business or in relationships.
Yeah, I love that what you talked about curiosity. I think I feel like the older we get, kind of that curiosity diminishes. And, I remember being a kid and being so curious about so many things, and I feel like the way to tap into that curiosity is to remind yourself that also there's still that kid inside of you. Um, Always, because a lot of people say, "I wish I could tell the 8-year-old Chris this." But I feel
Mm,
like he's always in there, and just tapping into that and being aware of that. I don't know. That's me trying to spur my curiosity at times when I feel like I'm just moving along, right? And on
yeah.
autopilot, like you're mentioning. Um, yeah, but that's why I love that you mentioned about curiosity. I think it's so powerful in so many different facets.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I see holding people back, and look, I'm no different from that in some ways too, is that when we become curious, at least about ourself, like why do we think, feel, and do the way we do? When we
Yeah.
become more curious about ourselves, oftentimes shame can come up, and that doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Uh,
Right.
That doesn't feel good at all, and so our brains are resistant to that, and they're like, "Nope, we're not gonna go there." So then we just stay on autopilot, but if we can get comfortable with feeling discomfort, if we can expand that threshold, it'll allow us to be more curious so that we can really dive into understanding ourselves so that we can become more comfortable with our relationship with money, so that we can show up better for our partner, so we can show up better for our kids or even ourselves.
Hmm. So speaking of that, I'm holding this, right? I love this cup of yours.
I got one there too.
And so, when I just need that, curiosity, I look at this cup and think, feel, do. I mean, it's three simple words, but I feel like in their combination and how you laid them out, I feel like there's that little green man, Yoda, talking to me in his Yoda voice. Can you tell me about think, feel, do? Like, I know you talked about it just a little bit, but can you expand upon that? Like, how could that help people? I guess.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite exercises to do with couples, with individuals, but also with myself.
Yeah.
And don't tell my kids, but sometimes I kind of do it with them too without them knowing.
That's a
Um,
very Jedi thing in you.
Yeah, I'll probably end up paying for their therapy later on in life, I'm sure. So, but, we'll see. But, think, feel, do really came out of, a lot of other psychological therapeutic models. And so working with couples, it was a simple way that I could help them do a deeper dive on understanding themselves, but also being able to understand their partner as well, or at least hear kind of their partner. And so, the exercise really is designed to cause you to come off autopilot for one. But it really starts with thinking about, let's just say you had a moment of some impulsive spending.
Mhm.
I'll go with this example just for sake of ease. And, you realize like, oh my gosh, like I just bought all this stuff at Amazon or Target or wherever your guilty pleasure is. And you return it. And then you're like, oh, there's that exercise I can do that crazy therapist lady on Chris's podcast is talking about. And so it might sound something like the think would be evaluating what the thoughts were when you were, let's just say, at Target spending. And maybe the thoughts were, oh, I could use that for my, new guest room. Or, oh, I've really been doing well with everything else. I deserve this. Or it's not going to make that much of a difference. It's only like $8.99. That's not that much. It's under $10.
Mhm.
That's a steal, right? You just name out and write out all the thoughts were. Maybe then you move down to the feel and you identify what emotions you were experiencing. Maybe it wasn't exactly while you were at Target, but maybe you've been feeling lately a bit stressed out. Maybe you've been feeling worried. Maybe you were feeling really excited. Whatever the emotion was, it's important to name what it is, even if it's several different ones. And then the thought. I'm sorry, than the do. And so maybe let's just say if you were thinking all these thoughts of like, I deserve these purchases, they're not that much, they're only 8.99, and then you get home and you start to feel guilty, right? Oh, I felt really bad. I felt really guilty. My partner and I, we've been trying to work on living, in more of a tighter budget or spending less on discretionary.
Yeah.
You feel guilty. So the do part would be, what did you do? Well, then you went and returned everything. And so
Mm,
it sounds like it's simple and it is designed to be really simple. But what it's also designed to do is to create connections to understanding why you do the things that you do and why you feel the way that you feel. And so over time, creating these new connections, what it starts to do is to create new pathways for you in the brain of next time or the next couple times you're at Target going, oh, I tend to feel guilty when I purchase a lot of these like under $10 purchases, or,
mhm.
oh, like me and my partner are really working on this budget. Gosh, I don't really want to have to like take the time to return all of this. You know what? I'm just going to stick to my list.
Yeah.
It starts to create new behaviors over time. This isn't a magic wand solution.
Yeah.
So I don't want to give listeners the impression that, the first time you do it, like, voila.
Everything's changed
Um,
forever.
Everything's changed. Yeah, I tell my clients I didn't get a magic wand in grad school, so, um, I must not have been there for that class. May have been missing it for some reason, but the power really of it, of the exercise of think, feel, do is really to help yourself evaluate you more fully and deeply so that you can maybe create less shame or feel less shame around what you're doing and start to create just more context for yourself and understanding so that then you have the power and control to be able to make decisions differently moving forward.
Yes, yes, I love that. I mean, selfishly, to be honest, I also use it for myself, but I've
Yeah.
also used it in my practice. And
Hmm.
how can I work with clients maybe a little bit differently? How can I connect with them on a deeper level? And so just the simple think, feel, do has allowed me not just to be a lot more empathetic, but also think about, if they're coming to me concerned about the market, yeah, everyone's concerned about the market, but there's got to be a deeper thing. Let's talk about that. Let's think about that. And
Yeah.
then, how does that make you feel? Is it going to be a long-term, short-term thing? And then what do we do about it? Do we make adjustments to your plan? Do we stay tight? I think the broad thing is, oh, don't do anything and just sit tight. But I feel like I don't like telling people to do that all the time. I want more deeper explanation for them.
Yeah.
It's so easy just to say, oh yeah, don't worry, it'll come back up. And yeah, it's great to have that mentality, but also I feel like we have to understand why we should stay tight and not make any changes if that's the play to do. Right. And so
Yeah.
I think just being intentional to dive deeper is where the meaning comes from. Think, feel, do for me, especially in my practice.
Yeah, I love to hear that you're, using it. I think, I'm reminded in listening to you talk that one of the benefits of it is that it's not just a retroactive like process. Like you can also be proactively like implementing it too, just like you said. You can also use it for trying to understand other people, maybe, in your family system or or at the workplace, what have you. But it's really just a great process that is helpful for being able to, increase awareness and also respond with compassion.
Yeah, I love that. So speaking of this awareness, right? Do you find that there's particular maybe financial blind spots that you've observed that in women and families and couples and business owners that maybe they should be aware of?
Yeah, I know can be a lot of blind spots as it relates to the self,
Hmm.
certainly. And you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
That's what my granddaddy says. I don't know anything I don't know. And so I think that it reigns true. Certainly, given our maybe history, relationship history, upbringing history, our own present mental health at the time,
Hmm.
it can certainly contribute to having blind spots. Usually, it's in regards to, sometimes thinking that we're better maybe than what we are at something.
Mm.
So I see this a lot with couples particular to communication.
Mm.
Sometimes we think that we are doing a better job communicating than what we actually are. And so there are blind spots within that, but also seeing it within the parenting realm as well.
Yeah.
So I think blind spots, they can be really hard, which is one of the benefits of working with a financial advisor, a financial therapist, a mental health therapist. Like that's one of the primary benefits is that it allows you to explore any potential blind spots in, the 8 areas of well-being that maybe could be contributing to your presenting issue or presenting problem.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that, by the way. I feel, the role of a financial advisor, at least, I've been doing this for 15 years. I feel like it's continuing to evolve in a lot of ways. And I feel as a planner, the number one goal is to kind of bring up potential blind spots that clients should be aware of. Not saying it's going to happen, but let's just plan in case it does happen. And I feel like if we do, maybe you can just continue then to move through life more, I guess, more confident in doing other things because you've addressed certain things that could happen. I don't know.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I
Yeah.
would agree with you.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're nearing the end. So, a couple more questions here, Ashley, for you. So, I'm curious. If you could give, I know maybe you have a few, but like one game changing piece of advice for those that obviously are striving for financial security, but also wanting to live a much more intentional, purposeful life. I feel like we all do, but we're just not aware of it. What would that game changing piece of advice be?
While I think it's game changing, I don't think it's gonna be like like radical, or something that other people probably haven't already said, but reaching out for help sooner than later is and can be pretty game changing,
Mm,
for a lot of people, whether that's reaching out for help with your relationship, with your finances, what have you. But reaching out for help in general is a game changer. So it requires a lot of things, humility, curiosity, um, courage,
yeah.
maybe even time and resources too. But game changing advice is, don't wait until things get, bad or terrible, to start making changes in any area of your life.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I love that one. And so, as we close, but fast forward now, a couple of years from now, what do you think, in your role as a financial therapist and helping couples, what do you think the financial landscape overall would look like for, say, couples, for women, um, over the next 5, 10 years?
Well, I think more and more as the population ages, I think women are going to be, coming into more money.
Yeah.
Statistically, we women tend to outlive our partners. And so, I think that if I were speaking to women, especially women who are maybe 35 to 45, 50, is, taking that step if you and your partner or you in general have not started to consider working with a financial professional would be to start that process sooner than later. There are a lot of different types of financial advisors out there. And so the common misconception is that you have to have a lot of money in order to meet
Yeah.
with an advisor. And that's simply not true, which is wonderful. And so I think as the landscape changes, financially for women, they're going to need more support. But for my gals out there, that might also require you taking the initiative to reach out and seek that support out.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Now, is there any question, Ashley, that you wish that I had asked or that we delve into, that you can answer?
I can't think of any off the top of my head. I think that you did a great job. Um, it sounds like I'm beating a dead horse, but I would just reiterate if anything or stress anything is for couples to reach out. for support and help, that it's okay. You don't have to have a problem to go to therapy. So, also a misconception. And, there might be others that disagree with me, but you don't have to have some sort of terrible, awful problem in order to reach out for help.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think it's just again just having that space, that awareness to say, is it time for help, and to know that you don't have to wait is powerful to hear that there's people out there that want to be able to help you and not just help you when things go bad. So I think
Yeah.
it's also just being proactive is so
Yep.
important. So is there a particular quote that has, just impacted who you are as a professional, that you could share? I love quotes. I'm a quote guy, so I always love asking this question.
Yeah, there's 2. One is from, Dr. John Gottman and the Gottman Institute, so I know I've mentioned them before. They're a fantastic resource also, just by the way. But one of the quotes that he says is "Small things often." So for a financial planner, that probably makes sense from, compounding interest rate standpoint,
Right.
but
Yeah.
there's also relational compounding too, or just even putting in the work to understand yourself and your relationship with money, and certainly other areas of our life. But small things often is the
Mm.
quote that definitely sticks with me. Actually, at my clinical office, I have a coffee mug with that quote
Oh, nice.
um, on it. Yeah, yeah. And then the other one is something my granddaddy's always said, and that's "press on." So
Press
that
on.
just kind of is like a personal mantra that sticks with me.
Oh, awesome. I love it. Thank you for sharing. And
Mhm.
last, most important question, Ashley, is how can listeners find you and find more information about what you do for couples and people? Where can they go?
I have a website. It's thewealthymarriage.com. So thewealthymarriage.com. The Wealthy Marriage is the name of my clinical practice. You can also find me on LinkedIn at Ashley Kwame. I don't think that there's many of them on there.
Mhm.
So look for the one that's a financial therapist. But you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter at BAM Consults. Or you can shoot me an email, hello at thewealthymarriage.com.
Awesome. Well, I'll definitely, grab all of that great information from you and then put it in the show notes so everyone listening can, instantly connect with you right there and then and get more information. But again, Ashley, for me, thank you so much. This has been amazing. Um, Words cannot express how grateful I am for the information that you shared and just, your journey. I feel like I said with what I do, what you do, there's a lot of overlap. It's not as compartmentalized as maybe most of society thinks. So I love connecting with folks like you to help me be able to serve people better as well too. So thank you so much, Ashley, again for your time and for being on the podcast.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services, LLC, member FINRA, SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Kestra Private Wealth Services, LLC, an affiliate of Kestra is. Mavin Bridge Capital and Kestra Investment Services are not affiliated. Kestra is in Kestras do not provide tax or legal advice. The opinions expressed in this commentary are those of the author and may not necessarily reflect those held by Kestra Investment Services, LLC or Kestra Advisory Services, LLC. This is for general information only and is not intended to provide specific investment advice or recommendations for any individual. It is suggested that you consult your financial professional, attorney, or tax advisor with regard to your individual situation. Comments concerning the past performance are not intended to be forward-looking and should not be viewed as an indication of future results.